So the Rugby Championship is set to kick off next weekend, and in this video I'm going to be giving my All Blacks XV that at some stage throughout the Rugby Championship I would absolutely love to see. Before we jump into it, I do need to clarify, this is not what I think they will go with up against Argentina, the opening game for the All Blacks, as some of these players who I've selected here won't even be available for selection due to playing for their provinces. This is more so in the long term of the competition, what I would love to see perhaps in that first game up against the South Africans, perhaps in the later stages in the Bledisloe. But at some point, I would like to see this starting XV for the ABs based off the form that we have seen from the July internationals, as well as a little bit of personal preference for myself. But jumping straight into it, front row, I would love to see them go with number 1, Ethan de Groot, number 2, Asafo Aumua, and then number 3, Tyrell Lomax. I don't see them making too many changes to the main props. Normally it is de Groot and Lomax, and that is the way it will probably stay for the All Blacks. Although there is now some competition with Fletcher Null, as well as Tamaiti Williams starting to push themselves up the rankings a little bit. We've seen Ofa Toangafasi in some good form, and also the debut of Pasilio Tosi up against the Fijians. But I do feel like at the moment, Ethan de Groot and Tyrell Lomax still will be that starting combo. Asafo Aumua, I think that he could be a very strong option for that starting jersey. It's been critiqued many times, definitely throughout the July internationals, that the All Blacks lineout just isn't quite functioning the way that it should be, and I don't think it's completely to blame for the locks. Of course, there's been a lot of pressure on from opposition when it comes to those lineout steals, but I do think maybe having Asafo Aumua just throwing a little bit of a new look at the opposition, rather than having Cody Taylor, who even though he's had some good moments throughout the July internationals, maybe could have more of an impact when he does make his way off the bench. So my front row, pretty similar to what they had throughout a couple of those July internationals, just with that change of Asafo Aumua. But now looking through at the locking duo, I would love to see the combination of Patrick Tuipulotu at number 4 and Tupou as the number 5. Now I could easily go with Derry in that 5 jersey, have that Blues chemistry alongside Patrick Tuipulotu, and I think it would be a very strong one. We saw Derry's impact off the bench up against Fiji for his international debut. He then earned himself a spot in the Rugby Championship squad, so I think he's got a long career ahead of him for the ABs if he can just stay away from that injury list. But someone who hasn't been able to avoid that injury, it is Scott Barrett. He is not going to be available for the first few games of the Rugby Championship. I do think that Tuipulotu throughout the regular Super Rugby season had a very strong one at number 4, so it wouldn't be unlikely for him to go back to that 4 jersey. And I think Tupou, he has still been pretty solid, pretty consistent, so I'd have him as my number 5. But looking through at the loose forward trio, now as the competition progresses, I believe this loose forward trio will have a few changes in it. But based off what we saw throughout the July internationals as well as Super Rugby Pacific, I've actually gone with number 6, Summer Penny Finau, which might be a bit of a surprise seeing as in the last game we saw Luke Jacobson at 6, and I actually thought he did extremely well up against Fiji. Number 7, I've gone with Ethan Blackadder, and then number 8, this is where I've got Ardie Savea. Now this could easily be debated, this loose forward trio. I do think that Blackadder up against the Fijians was a little bit more busy than we saw Papali'i in the games up against the English. Of course, different opposition can lead to different work rates and different amounts that you have to do in their loose forward trio, but I do think that Ethan Blackadder, very decent option somewhere in that loose forward trio. Although now, of course, we've seen that return of Sam Cane, and I do think he's slowly going to take that number 7 jersey from Papali'i or Blackadder, whatever way they do end up deciding. Now, Blackadder has been released to play for Tasman in the Bunnings NBC, which does mean more than likely up against Argentina, the All Blacks will have Dalton Papali'i starting and have Sam Cane making his way off the bench. But I still feel like Blackadder could be a strong option if worse comes to worse, and if they do need to find someone to play a spot in that loose forward trio, I think Blackadder could be that man. Looking at Ardie Savea at 8. Now, if Savea played any other position, I think that Wallace Satiti, time and time again, has proven that he could easily get their number 8 jersey, but his problem at the moment is Ardie Savea, because until that man gives up that 8 jersey, Satiti is going to struggle to get minutes unless he's going to play somewhere else in their loose forward trio. Now, he's still a very strong option to replace Ardie Savia, but I think he'll just have to wait patiently for that jersey to open up, and then once he gets it, of course, it's going to be very hard to take it off him. But moving on now to my backline, number 9, Cortez Ratama, and number 10, Damian McKenzie. I feel like Cortez was, of course, one of the injured halfbacks throughout those July internationals, unfortunately taking the head knock up against the Fijians. He is back rearing to go now though, which is great news for the ABs, definitely because of those injury concerns that they had throughout July. But I think that Cortez Ratama, Damian McKenzie combo, it has been proven at the Chiefs that it works. Damian McKenzie, I still think, is the fly half at the moment. Beauden Barrett, he's been playing a lot more of 15, so I don't really see them sticking him at fly half, although they have added Ruben Love and they've added Will Jordan into the squad, so perhaps one of those two start to get a few minutes at number 15 as well. But I would still keep Damian McKenzie as the 10, and I would still give him the kicking tee for the ABs. In the centres, this was a little bit of a tricky one because in terms of form, you would go Anton Lienert-Brown, Billy Proctor as your combination. I've made a little bit of a reshuffle here. There's a bit of reasoning behind it, but I've gone Jordie Barrett, number 12, number 13, Billy Proctor. So I've gone with the Hurricanes combination, and even though I'd love to see Anton Lienert-Brown at number 12, I do still think that his ability off the bench might be a little bit stronger than Jordie Barrett's off the bench. But then saying that, I think his ability in the starting lineup at the moment, based off form, is probably better than Jordie Barrett's. But I do think that they'll stick with Barrett as that 12 for a little bit longer. We've seen Proctor be released to play in the Bunnings NPC for Wellington, so that means more than likely we're still going to see Rieko Ioane at 13, but I do think the most dangerous combination that they can go with would involve Billy Proctor or Anton Lienert-Brown within it, because currently Rieko just can't quite find that form, but hopefully it happens soon for him, because if it doesn't, then he might be struggling to get those starting minutes. But moving on now to the back three for the ABs, what I think would be a strong combination. We've actually already seen it. We saw it up against the Fijians. Number 11, Caleb Clark. Number 14, Sevu Reece. Number 15, Beauden Barrett. Now, Barrett didn't really have to do a huge amount up against Fiji, but he was still prominent at times. He had that phenomenal second test up against the English coming off the bench. He was playing at 15 as the replacement for Perofeta rather than having him on the field for Damian McKenzie, although he was taking some of that fly half responsibility in terms of the attacking plays, having him as first receiver, then putting McKenzie on the outside. But I think with the experience, definitely in a game up against the likes of South Africa, maybe up against Argentina, we see the All Blacks have a bit of a reshuffle. And I should mention, we are going to be doing our All Blacks starting XV that I would like to see for the Argentina game as well, the one just around the corner, as well as our lineup prediction that we think Razor will be going with. So plenty of videos still to come throughout the week, so be sure keep an eye out for that. But Beauden Barrett, I think at the moment is the strongest 15. Perofeta, he hasn't really done much wrong, but at the same time, I feel like just that little bit of a lack of experience means that Barrett may get that nod ahead of Perofeta. But I'd also love to see Ruben Love get himself that chance at number 15 at some point. Just don't know when that is going to be. But number 14, Sevu Reece, that one was pretty self-explanatory. He is really a strong option. Later on in the Rugby Championship, we may even see Will Jordan take back to that number 14 jersey like he did for the All Blacks before he was injured. And then number 11, it is that seesaw between Caleb Clark or Mark Talia. Personal preference for me, I do prefer Caleb Clark. I feel like he's a little bit busier when the side are defending. Mark Talia, I think that his defence got a little bit exposed in that series up against the English, but he is still a brilliant try-scoring attacking option for the All Blacks. So they've got to decide which one brings more to the lineup, and I think that will be who they go with as the number 11. But nonetheless, I do thank you all very much for tuning in. Like I said at the start, this is what I would like to see at some stage throughout the Rugby Championship. Not the first game, not the last game, just a game in general at some point. So hopefully that makes sense. I know that people have been getting confused when we did one involving the Springboks, but I am curious to know who you guys would like to see in your Dream XV for the All Blacks throughout their Rugby Championship campaign. Do let me know in the comments down below, as well as how you think the All Blacks will go throughout the Rugby Championship. Like I mentioned, only less than 7 days away. It's going to be an awesome one, and we will be covering plenty of it on the channel, including live commentary, previews of the matches, lineup announcements, and all that other good stuff involving the Rugby Championship. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all for the next one.